In this video, we're going to continue talking about SMC versus RSMF workflows. As you saw from a previous video, vdiscovery has built a solution to help our clients review text messages in Relativity. Now, there are two workflows that our clients can follow. One is SMC, stands for Short Message Communication, and the other one is RSMF, which is Relativity Short Message Format. Each one of those workflows have pros and cons, and in this video we dive in deep in talking about some of the advantages as well as considerations for those workflows. No one solution fits all data is different, and there are different types of workflows different people prefer to follow. So it's a good idea to talk to a project manager at vdiscovery for a little bit of consultation, explain what the data is, what is your preferred workflow, and we'll be able to work together to come up with the optimal solution. But let's dive into pros and cons of SMC versus RSMF. And we're going to start again with SMC, and we'll talk about some of the advantages. And the first advantage, arguably, it is simpler and quicker. You get your data in a table of view of Relativity. You can see it right away. You can scroll up and down just like you would in Excel. You can perform quick filtering so you could find what you're looking for, and you can mass tag them and be, well, you could say, done with a quick review. The other advantage is flexible groupings. When we create RSMF files, we have to group messages per file. With SMC, we do not. So what we're able to do is create like an attachment level field, but for conversations. And because of that, we can change it whenever we want to. So we can start with 24-hour groupings, and we can switch it to maybe a week's worth. Depends what feels right at the time when you're reviewing documents. So you can easily switch conversation groupings for flexibility as you perform your review. Of course, the other advantage of SMC is you're able to have a hybrid solution with RSMF. So you can start on SMC and switch to RSMF, but you cannot do it the other way around. With SMC, you have better control of what's going to be produced, so you can simply check or uncheck or tag and untag individual message and attachments, and that's it. You don't have to worry about the redacting. And finally, more targeted searching and filtering. You would have more metadata in SMC, so you can work with more metadata, and you can create pivots, timeline pivots based on text messages you select or put in a saved search and visualize them that way. Now, there's some considerations to SMC which we will need to talk about. And the first is you are dealing with individual messages. When you have RSMF, you're reducing your document collection by a lot because you're grouping messages together. So when you're looking at text messages in SMC, each message is a separate record, and the number of actual documents could become overwhelming. Next consideration is presentation. When you're looking at SMC data, you're looking at essentially an Excel-like view of your text messages and not something that you would see on the phone. So it is great for data analysis, but not so great for presentations. The next consideration is attachments. You would need to click on the individual attachments in order to see them. They will not show up in an Excel-like view in Relativity. Next consideration is proximity searching, which may not be as useful as in RSMF because text messages could be stored in different parts of a database. So if you're looking for one word within the other, these two text messages could be sent in different dates, and one can have doc ID of 1 and the other one of 1000, and the proximity search will not bring them together. Next consideration is hybrid workflow. If you choose to go with a hybrid workflow, you are storing same text messages multiple times, so you have to be extra organized in your workspace to make sure you're not reviewing same text messages multiple times. And finally, SMC workflow does not lend itself well to image-based production. So if you have to create images, this may not work well for you. The preferred format for production of SMC data is a DAT file with link to native files. All right, now let's talk about RSMF advantages over SMC workflow. First advantage for RSMF, of course, is the presentation. When you're looking at RSMF files, they almost look like they're screenshots from a phone, so anyone who is looking at them immediately see and can understand what's going on with the conversation. It looks more presentable and easier to understand. Now, attachments such as pictures and videos displayed in line with text messages, and in fact videos will play right in Relativity, making it much easier to interact with data. You can do date filtering and timeline visualization on a conversation where there's a timeline at the bottom, and you can click on it to jump to different points of a conversation or filter your data. The other advantage is fewer documents. If you started a collection with 100,000 text messages, you will not have 100,000 records in Relativity. That is because we take in multiple text messages and grouping them into one document. So you will have less documents to deal with, which may be an easier way for you to work with the data in Relativity. RSMF also gives you improved searching capability. Now you can use proximity searching to find words that are close together that are within the same conversation. And final advantage, RSMF does lend itself to a better production format if you're looking to do image-based production. Now let's talk about considerations for RSMF. And one of the biggest considerations is you have to make certain decisions before data gets loaded to Relativity. Specifically, you have to consider how text messages will be grouped together. And once you make that decision, there is no easy way to undo it. You have to go back to original data from SMC and regroup it and reload it. This, of course, may mean that you could lose the tagging you've done on a previous data, which may or may not be a big deal. And speaking of tagging, when you are doing tagging, you tag entire RSMF file, not individual text messages. So there is no way to act on individual messages within RSMF file. You perform an action or a tag on the entire group of messages. And because of that, there is no way to exclude individual message. If you don't want it included in the production, you would have to redact it. Same thing with attachments. Attachments show up twice, once in line with text messages as well as the attachment. So you may have to redact attachments twice, or you can redact inline attachment once and then exclude the attachment. In that case, you will be producing broken families, which may be okay. Next consideration is searching for dates and times. If your RSMF documents are grouped by 24 hours, you will probably be okay. However, if you group in your messages by a month or more, the dates in between those conversations will not be searchable. Only begin date of a conversation and the end date of conversation is captured in metadata fields. Lastly, filtering and searching within RSMF, while it does work in Relativity, it cannot be saved, at least at this time. So if you filter for certain date range inside the RSMF file, you can look at it. However, you can't image it in that way, or you can't save it for later use. Well, I have to admit, that was a lot of information. And if you still have questions about SMC or RSMF, I welcome you to reach out to vdiscovery's project manager, and they'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you for watching this video.